All right, good evening, everyone. My name is Miss Prosnick. I am the College and Career Advisor here at Northgate, and tonight is our junior night. Steps towards the future college readiness. Just a reminder, if you are coming in, please go ahead and mute yourself. And we are recording this so that anybody who's not able to attend tonight, or in case you want to view it at a later time, you can go back. All right, so today, this is some of the things we're going to be going over today so you can get a general idea. We will end by 7 o'clock. I will be available until about 7:30 to answer any questions you will have. Hopefully this will actually be less than an hour long, and I hope that you do find the information very helpful. If you have any questions, you can put them into the chat box at any time, and either myself or Ms. Bly will be able to answer them as we're going through the presentation or at the end of the presentation. So one of the first things that I did want to go over with everyone is a reminder that we have some amazing tools in Naviance. And as we go into your senior year, you'll want to get familiar with the different tools of Naviance. Where in the fall, we'll be going in as well to talk about how you can make requests for letters of recommendation and that sort of thing. There is a link to the Clever Naviance login from the Northgate main page. So if you go to the Northgate High School main webpage under resources, you can find a link to the Clever login. You log in the same way you log into your Google Classroom using your mdusd.net email and password. And once you are in there, all of my juniors who are with me here today probably remember from the class presentations, I do encourage one of the first things that you want to be doing as you're looking towards the future and where you will be, particularly after you get through university, is you'll eventually have a career. And Naviance has some really amazing tools. They pull their data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, so you can explore different careers, you can explore different career areas. All of this is under the careers tab. There is also now a self-discovery tab in Naviance where you can find those different assessments that we've had available to you. Last year, before we went into lockdown, we brought all of you guys into our computer lab where you hopefully did have the opportunity to take the career interest profiler. If you weren't able to do that last year, have any questions about that or want to take it again, please let me know. It's a really great profile to help you understand work environments that you do well in. And actually Naviance will also recommend different career pathways. But as I was telling our juniors in the class presentations, I think it's really interesting when you take the career interest profiler and you get those Holland codes, just to understand more about work environments you do well in as it might relate to possible college environments. So think about your different strengths, where different environments that you do well in, and these assessments in Naviance are really great tools to help you explore that. Also in Naviance, under the college tab, there is a bunch of different tools that would be of interest. I'm going to, in particular, point out the Supermatch College Search. You can use about 37 different criteria to generate a list of colleges that might be a good match for you. And so if you haven't explored that tool in Naviance, I do encourage you to do that. You can narrow things down as specific as within like 50 miles of your home address. So it's a really neat tool to help you just see what is out there. From the Naviance main page, if you were to scroll down, there's also some other links that might be useful as well, particularly for our WUI schools, our UCs, and our CSUs. So please check that out within Naviance. Other ways that you can explore colleges, I want to jump into this right away. I think our colleges have been doing a really good job of providing a lot of virtual events and opportunities for students. If you go to the admissions webpage for any school that you're interested in, you will probably see a list of different upcoming informational sessions, maybe open house dates, different virtual visits, virtual tours. I've noticed we've had an increase in that again. So I encourage you to go to the different admissions web pages for colleges that you're interested in and seeing what's out there. There's a number of college fairs, virtual college fairs that are coming up. I've had them in the Wednesday homeroom slides, and they're also in my calendar. If you were to go to the Northgate High School main page under resources, you can find the college and career webpage. Under what you need to know now, you can find my calendar. You can always email me, but I think it's a good idea to start attending these different virtual sessions, virtual college fairs, and getting used to the languages that our admissions officers use, so that you can start to see the really the differences between each of the colleges and help to discover that right match for you. The social media pages are also great places to go for information, and again, to get that feel for the university. Talking with your friends and family is a great way to explore colleges. You have friends who might have already gone to university, and you know how perhaps they're in, how they work well in different environments, and then it can ask them different questions. Connect with the regional admissions representatives, the different officers in each of the admissions offices from the different colleges, and they also can connect you with maybe current students, so you can really start to see if it's a good match for you. So there's a couple of different ways to really get out there and explore colleges outside of our search engines. Over and over, you will hear me say, please go to the different admissions web pages, connect with the people there in the admissions office. I'm here to help you get through all of this information. There are so many colleges out there. There's 4,000 in the US. There's so many colleges, and hopefully I can help you really get through all of that information to find that right match for you. But as you start to identify schools that are of interest, reach out, get on their undergraduate admissions web pages and see the information that they're presenting, go to their sessions so that you are getting that information directly from them. Okay, a quick overview of our graduation as well as our California public universities, those A to G requirements. And so these are very important as you are looking towards higher education options, because you need to complete both of these. In order to graduate from Northgate, don't forget that you need to meet those requirements on the left-hand side with a D or better in each of the classes. If you have found that you have not met any of those requirements, please reach out to your academic counselor as soon as possible, so that you can explore your options. When we're talking about our A to G requirements, I am talking about those minimum admission academic requirements needed to be completed to apply into our California public universities. So in most cases, as long as you are on track for graduation, you probably are meeting our A to G requirements, but please take a special note that 2 years of a world language is required with our California public universities. This is our CSUs and UCs, as well as 1 year of visual and performing arts. So please take a note of that, as well as that you do need to pass the classes with at least a C or better. In most instances, as long as you are on track for graduation, you are meeting those requirements. Of course, you will be completing your English in next year. 11 of these HGs need to be completed going into your senior year. All right, so looking at our college timeline for all of our juniors here, you probably recognize this from when I went into your classes in a slightly abbreviated version here. Hopefully I have helped to break down things to be keeping in mind as we go through the application process this year. And as long as we're keeping these different areas in mind, everything else will be those details for you. Before I move on, actually, I had an excellent question in the chat. What is a college prep elective? And so we have our general classes in here, English, the different subject areas. The college prep elective can be specific classes that meet that area, such as leadership or psychology is a college prep elective class, designated class. Also, as students go above and beyond minimum requirements, so we only require 2 years of science for our CSUs, but 3 years are recommended. So that third year can also fulfill that requirement for as a college prep elective. Great question. Okay, so moving forward, looking at our college timelines and things to be keeping in mind. So I have exploring colleges, considering if you need to take the SAT or ACT for the college you're planning to apply to, looking at do you need letters of recommendation or essays, and then finally submitting the application. So to further break it down just a little bit more, right off the bat, we should be at this point hopefully exploring colleges and the requirements needed. I mentioned those A to Gs because these are specific to our California State University schools. However, most universities have minimum requirements that are fairly similar to those A to G requirements that we use here, with some exceptions. If you are, for example, looking at University of Oregon, you are looking at a minimum of 3 years of science. So it's a good idea right now to be exploring colleges you're interested in, getting onto the undergraduate admissions web pages and seeing what those requirements are and making sure that you are meeting those. Um, Please also, again, I can't speak enough about attending the informational sessions that are offered, different virtual fairs, so that you just are able to get used to the language that our admissions officers are using and use the fairs as an opportunity to explore different colleges out there. There are so many different types, and we are looking for hopefully a good fit for you. The second thing that we're starting to consider right now, moving through probably December of this year, is do you need to take the SAT or ACT? So hopefully you guys did see my email that where I spoke about updates as it relates to the SAT and ACT, and I have links in that email to the specific admissions webpage for the different universities. Our CSUs will be test blind, continuing their test blind policy for the upcoming year. Our UCs will be test optional, but each campus will choose and they will put out whether or not they will be using the SAT or ACT in consideration as as they're considering you for admissions. And I am finding overall that most universities seem to be following that trend and continuing either test-free or test blind or test optional policies from this past year. So as you are looking at colleges you're interested in, consider, do I need to take the SAT or ACT? If you're applying to a mix of schools, you might want to plan to take the SAT at least once. Right now, of course, we are still in the purple tier, and so that is not optional in our area, but going closer to summer and in the fall, I would hope that it would be. And then after you take that exam, you can decide if you're applying to a test optional school, if you need to submit it. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. Next thing, going into the fall, as you start to finalize your list, you will have an idea of the colleges you're applying to need a letter of recommendation or essays. Explore that information now. And then in the fall, I'll be coming into your senior classrooms to talk about how you can make that request to your academic counselors and teachers. Check to see if the colleges you're applying to need a letter of recommendation. Most of our state universities do not. Our CSUs and UCs do not require or do not accept letters of recommendation, and many state universities actually don't. So double check on the admissions page for schools that you're interested in if they need a letter or will take a letter of recommendation. And if you find that they do in the fall, we'll put in that formal request. You might want to let a teacher know that you would like them to write their letter of recommendation. As I was telling the students in the junior classes, we want to give our teachers and our academic counselors as much time as possible before the deadlines to write those letters of recommendations. Our teachers and our academic counselors do an amazing job with those letters of recommendation. So please, let's give them the courtesy of plenty of time to be able to complete those letters. Also check to see if the colleges you're applying to require essays. I know I'm giving a lot of information right now. We're going to take it all in. We'll go over this in the fall as well. But check to see if the colleges you're applying to require essays. Our CSUs don't take essays. Our UCs have their personal insight questions. And later on this month, we will have a UC Santa Barbara representative come in and talk more about those personal insight questions. Other schools, it will really vary. So make sure that you are looking at that, and you might be able to view the prompts now. And then finally, in the fall, starting October 15th is the earliest deadline I'll see, typically for music programs, but we'll start submitting the application. And that will continue through about March is kind of the latest we'll see. Although the vast majority of applications are submitted, I will say between November 1st and about February 15th. So make sure you check those deadlines. This is a lot of information to consider. We'll be going over it. Also, in the Junior Action Plan, I do have a Google Sheet that you can download where you can help to keep track of some of these different details of the different colleges you're interested in. All right, is everybody still with me? Thumbs up, good. Okay, moving forward. So I want to give an overview to our different university and college systems. I'll be talking first community college, then going through our CSUs, UCs, California private colleges, and then looking more at all right. So first off, our California community colleges are amazing. We have 116 within the state of California, and it's split within districts. So our local district is DVC, LMC, and Contra Costa College. And typically students will enroll at one home college, usually DVC in our case, because that's our closest. But the great thing about the district is that you can actually take classes at the other campuses. So if you are enrolled at DVC and then you notice there's an amazing class offered at Contra Costa College or at LMC, there's not much paperwork that has to be done in order to take a class there as well. So that's kind of a neat thing. In order to enroll, you do need to have a high school diploma. You'll apply and complete 4 steps, and then you'll be able to register for the classes. And our community college offers certificates, associate's degree, and then have transfer options to our UCs and CSUs and private colleges. The counselors there are wonderful to help you really identify your goal and then what steps you need to take in order to move towards those goals. So if you are looking to transfer and you know that you want to go to maybe one of our CSUs or UCs or an HBCU or a particular college, they can really help you stay on track and take the classes that you need in order for that transfer to be as smooth as possible. I highly recommend for you to also check out the transfer web pages of any four-year university you're interested in. The UCs have a tool, their transfer webpage, I think, is one of the best that I've seen. I'm absolutely in love with it. I encourage you guys to check that out because it really does offer some great tools. So our California community colleges are a really good option if you're looking to transfer. If you know that you are, for example, looking to do an apprenticeship program, DVC has an amazing pre-apprenticeship program I encourage you to check out. There's some other options as well, and we can always talk about that more. I've also had some students, our community colleges pull very strongly from the community that they're in. And so if a student, for example, is really interested in film, going down to Santa Monica to their community college, there's some really neat programs and opportunities. So that's our community colleges. I almost forgot, the first 2 years are free. So that is a huge selling point as well. And let me know if you have questions about that, or else you can always check out the DVC webpage or our California Community Colleges webpage for more information. Our CSUs, the California State University System, there's 23 campuses. Students need to be meeting those A to G requirements with a 2.5 GPA or higher. It's even better, of course, 3.0 or higher, depending on the schools you're looking at and whether they're impacted. Our CSUs offer the bachelor's degree, master's, doctorates, different certificates. Of course, as our graduating rising seniors, as you're looking to enter into university, you're looking at that bachelor's degree. In most cases, that's a 4-year degree program. The California State University has a web page, and I have it here at the bottom, degrees.calstate.edu. This is my favorite website with the CSUs because you can enter in a keyword of a major that you might be interested in, and it will and then you can toggle it so that it only shows bachelor's degree. It'll list all of the CSU campuses that offer that particular major. But then what it does, which I love, is it'll show you areas of concentration. So if you are interested in, let's say, psychology, it will list all the campuses that have psychology, and then you'll start to see the different areas of concentration within psychology. And you can take that information, that language that's being used, and say, oh, cognitive psychology, or anyways, I should have not chose psychology, but cognitive psychology, let's say, and say that sounds really interesting. I'm interested in it at these CSUs, or you might use that language to then explore the major at other university systems as well. So please check out our CSUs. They have just amazing programs out there for students. What I like also is that they are highly in tune with the changing economic needs of the state of California. So for example, if you are considering business, there's a lot of CSUs that have amazing business programs, and they work closely with the communities that they're in. So that was one of the things to check out. And of course, you can always reach out to any of our CSU campuses or myself, and we can talk about that in more detail. The University of California system. So we have 10 campuses, only 9 are open to freshmen. UC San Francisco is for graduate students only. You are needing to meet those A to G requirements in order to apply into the system. You're looking at a 3.0 GPA or higher. The, again, SAT or ACT exam is, I have this written kind of backwards, is optional, we're test optional this year within the state, within the University of California system, but specific campuses are coming out and letting you know if they will be considering it as part of the admissions process. And I have that list later on that we can go over again. They are also looking at extracurricular activities, and they have personal insight questions for you to complete. The UCs offer, similar to the CSUs, our bachelor's degree, master's, doctorate programs. The great thing with our UCs is that they do amazing research. They also, of course, work with those local communities to really make sure that you are being able to apply everything that you're learning. But even above and beyond that, they go into detail for each of the different subject areas. And so going back to our Holland interest codes and knowing what is best for you, if you know that you really enjoy getting into that material, doing that research, and you are looking through the UC pages and getting really excited about what you see their students doing, that could be a good match for you. So explore all our different pages. Excuse me. All right, looking at our private and independent colleges and out of state. So requirements as we go beyond our A to Gs and our state universities, and then we start to look at those private colleges, out of state schools, the requirements will vary. And most of them will be similar to our A to G requirements. Many are test optional or test blind this year. Check out what it looks like for schools that you're interested in now so that you can best prepare moving forward. Start, if you need to, use that Google Sheet so you can keep track of all of this information. In most cases, I'd already mentioned, how University of Oregon requires the 3 years of science. So that's kind of the biggest difference. But for the most part, it's fairly similar to our A to G requirements. But as long as you are checking early, you should be set. There's not many out there. The one that I always pops out in my mind is Caltech requiring calculus in order to apply. Actually, I think they highly recommend it. But so that was the only one that really ever pops out in my mind. And when we're looking at our private institutions, out-of-state schools, again, they're offering bachelor's, master's, medical degrees, law degrees. But at this point, you are probably primarily looking at them for those bachelor's 4-year degree programs. The WUI schools and out-of-state colleges. So the map I have on the screen right now shows all of the states that are involved in the WUI program. This is the Western Undergraduate Exchange Program. And what it is for most state universities in these states, not all of them, so not University of Oregon, not University of Washington, but almost pretty much all other state universities, They will take an out-of-state student coming in, and if you meet their requirements, sometimes it's a GPA requirement, sometimes only particular majors participate in the WUI program, but you can pay usually about 150% of in-state tuition. So for example, if you are interested in going to University of New Mexico, their in-state students pay, I think, 6,000 something dollars a year. Out-of-state students, it's like $18,000 a year if you meet the qualifications for the WUI program and you go to University of New Mexico as a WUI student. It's about, I want to say $8,000 a year for tuition. So it's an awesome deal, and it's definitely worth looking at. The WUI Savings Finder webpage is a great place to explore all of these different schools that participate in the WUI program, and you can see exactly what the tuition rates will be. And I also like it because it's another neat search tool for you to explore different colleges based, in this case, primarily on majors that you might be interested in. All right.
Rebecca, there are a few questions in the chat. Or do we want to wait till the end because they're more directed towards you?
Oh, okay.
Do you want me to read them?
Yeah, let me look.
One of them's private to me, but it would be a
Okay.
good thing. And I think you're going to cover it later about SAT.
We will be talking a little bit more about SAT later, so I probably will hold that for right now.
Okay, there was a question too about scholarships and sports scholarships. I'm not sure if you're covering that tonight.
Oh, okay. You know what? Actually, that's a good point. I don't have my sports side. I just realized that. Remind me at the end, and I will talk about getting into the eligibility center for sports. I also see a question, will the slideshow be available on our Google Classroom? I didn't think about the Google Classroom. I will put it up there. It'll also be available on my webpage in the junior action plan. And
Okay.
then and then we also had a question about going into next year if classes will be available in person. And last I have heard, our universities are planning for classes to be in person. I think that's the last I heard as well with the CSUs, but great questions, you guys. And I'll come back to those other ones. All right. So moving on, so going to our next step in terms of the actual applications for college. First off, please keep in mind, Naviance is not an application portal. In particular, if you are using Naviance to help you submit different items with the Common App, I know that sometimes people get confused about that, but it is not an application portal. The information in Naviance is not shared with the different colleges, but you will be applying to colleges using whatever application portal they're designating. And this could be the Common App, it can be the Coalition app, or it could be their own application portal system. So the UC has their own application system, the CSU has their own application system. University of Texas schools have their own application system. MIT has their own application system. So be sure that you are keeping track of the different portals out there and which portal you'll be using for which university. As you get into the application, there are things that are pretty similar no matter what portal you're using. So typically for the different portals, you are creating a username and password. You're putting in basic data about yourself. So your name, your address, what's the best way to get a hold of you. I encourage you to use a personal email. Make sure that it is one that you do check regularly. In many applications, I would say a majority of applications, you are going to be self-reporting your academic information. So as these different portals open up, a lot of them will open in August. I encourage you to create those accounts and start entering in this information before you get into all of your senior year schoolwork that you'll be doing. You can enter in all of this data, you have all of that. And if the school is test optional, you would be able to put in that information. The applications may include an essay personal insight questions, short answers. They might have letters of recommendation. They might need an official transcript submitted, oftentimes with counselor forms. And if you're applying to specific programs, you might need to submit a portfolio or have an audition or do an interview. So make sure, again, that you are looking at the different admissions web pages and start sorting through that information, writing down things that you'll be needing for the different in the different applications. All right, so going back to our testing. So, and actually I'll go ahead and get to that question first. So I did have one as well. So for test optional schools, does it mean if I submit a test, it'll count as extra credit? Does it make a difference? So I have felt really good this year. And I encourage you to also attend the different informational sessions that our universities are providing, whether it be when we have reps come here, well, right now virtually on campus, and you can do the signs up in Naviance for any virtual visits where our regional admissions reps are coming in and talking about their schools, or if you go to the undergraduate admissions page for any of school you're interested in and listen in on their informational sessions. But I think they're doing a really good job talking about what this means for their particular campuses. Overall, when schools have been saying that they're test optional, they mean that they're test optional. And this is a little bit of a switch from last year where we'd be like, give them all the information. But this past year, they've been very equitable about the evaluation of applications. And so I feel very comfortable telling people, and again, reach out to the different schools and listen in on their sessions. But I feel very comfortable telling you that if you feel that if you take the exam and it will positive reflect you and you're applying to a school that is test optional and you want to submit that score because you do think it's a very positive reflection on you, you should feel comfortable submitting that test score. If you don't like tests and don't want to take them, or you take the tests and you don't do very well and you think that it's not a good reflection on you, that your transcript and your classes that you take and your extracurriculars really are a better reflection of you as a student and as a person, you should likewise feel very comfortable about not needing, in that case, to submit your test scores to a school that's test optional. It is something that will be definitely very case by case as you consider how you are putting together your application and yourself. But I think all of our colleges this past year, as pretty much everybody was either test optional or test blind, they've done a really excellent job. And as we're starting to, see information come back about acceptances and denials, I think it really shows that they've been very fair this year, that where they have said that they're test optional, they truly mean that they're test optional, and you should feel comfortable whether or not you're submitting those scores. So if you are submitting a test score, it does not give you an advantage over a student who, is if you did not submit those test scores. On kind of the same note, admissions officers are looking for reasons to accept you for a school. So they want you to share information about yourself and to they give you the opportunity to present yourself in a positive light, but they're looking for reasons to accept you, not to deny you. If you have any questions about the applications or these processes at any of our universities, I encourage you to reach out to the different regional admissions representatives, listen in on those sessions. They're really helpful. So hopefully that answers that. To also reiterate, our CSUs are test blind, our UCs are test optional, but different campuses will be test free. So they will not be using the test scores as part of the admissions process. And many other colleges will be test optional. So if you're applying to a mix of schools, you may still want to consider taking the exam if you're able to at some point over this year. Many colleges will accept exams through December. So if you are interested in that, if you do feel that you test well or the testing is a good reflection on you, there is that option available and is something to consider. But again, at no point do you need to feel, if you're applying to a test optional school, that you have to make yourself more competitive. Everybody still with me? Okay. And I have a question in here. Wouldn't Northgate students benefit the most for taking and submitting the SAT to compensate for the AP limit? Great question. Actually, that's a good point because I didn't have it in my talking points, but I think that's a great question. So when you're submitting your applications to the universities, we do have a school profile where I discuss how Northgate High School, the classes that are available to students, in this case, are AP maximum of 6 classes, the environment that we're in. And this is important because universities evaluate students based off of what's available to them. So having the AP maximum of 6 will not be a negative on you in any way because the schools will have that information. Now, there are always places where I would make sure to put it into the application. Both our UCs and the Common App Coalition app applications have an extra section where you can write this in as well. My high school has a maximum of 6 AP classes so that the admissions officers know how they're evaluating your application. And to kind of expand upon that, different schools will have either AP, they might have IB programs, or they might not offer any AP or IB programs. So colleges will evaluate you based off of what is available to you. Again, they're looking for reasons to accept you. They're not looking for reasons to tear you down. They're looking at who you are as a complete person and how you've been able to perform with what's been available to you. And I will address that question in just a minute. Okay.
Rebecca,
Yes.
there's a question in the chat to everyone. That's the one you're going to address, or
The community colleges?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll address that a little. Yeah, actually, I'll address that here. That was good timing. So I'm going to switch a little bit. We're going to talk a little bit about the cost of college. I wanted to go over this briefly. We do have an informational session with Tim, our college finance guy, in 2 weeks on the 17th. So if you want to learn more about college finances, I think he does a really great job going over the information. But just so you have a general idea, this is some information and some estimates about the cost within the different systems. Excuse me. So with our California community colleges, it is in most cases, the 2 years of free tuition is for those community colleges that you're a resident of that district. So in our case, we are residents of DVC, LMC, Contra Costa College. And so if you were to go to those schools, you submit the FAFSA or DREAM Act in your senior year. You maintain a full course load of at least 4 classes or 12 units, and you maintain, I believe it's a 2.0 GPA. You qualify for those first 2 years of free tuition, so you wouldn't have to pay any additional fees. Now, I mentioned Santa Monica Community College. If you were to go down there, unfortunately, you would have to pay those fees. So I believe it's still $46 a unit. So if you're looking at a year of 30 credits, 15 credits each semester, that's about 5 classes to stay on track for transfer, you're looking at about $1,380 a year. So not too bad. Also, though, you always want to factor in housing. I find that ends up being a little bit more expensive. I know on my CSU, I have the housing a little bit low on here. If you were looking at San Francisco State, of course, San Francisco is in general more expensive. So their housing prices are actually more like probably $15,000, but you can see the difference in tuition through the different systems. Private universities, so the average cost, and this is nationwide with private institutions for tuition, is about $37,000. That compares to our state schools that are at definitely a discounted rate. I mentioned the WUI schools as well. Our public universities are there to really help serve the students of each state. So your California residents, our California state's universities are there to really help you gain an education and try to make it as affordable to you as possible and keep those tuition rates low. Our private institutions have different business models, but they might also have a lot of scholarships available to you, particularly if you have those higher GPAs. For example, University of San Francisco, I believe if you have a 3.8 GPA, you automatically have a $12,000 scholarship that gets applied. So it's certainly worth looking at what is available to students going in. If because you have a certain GPA, you might get certain scholarships, it's definitely worth checking that out. One of the best tools out there, I keep talking about a lot of best tools. There's a lot of tools out there for you guys. And please, I will have this presentation on my webpage, again, under the Junior Action Plan, or else you can always email me as well. Every school that receives federal funding is required to have a net price calculator. So this webpage right here is through the Department of Education, where you can go and you can search for a particular school you're interested in. You'll enter in your family's financial information, kind of similar to what you put into the FAFSA, the DREAM Act, and it'll be able to calculate an estimate of how much you might pay at that particular school. Please note some schools use old information. Some are very up to date. Some might ask for your GPA, which is always awesome when they do that, because you might be able to see if you qualify for any merit-based aid or not qualify. These are general estimates. But it's a great way to start to explore the costs of particular schools you're interested in. And sometimes people think a school might be way out of their budget, and then you look at the net price calculator and it might not be so bad. So I encourage you to look at that. And finally, just to bring up, when we're talking about financial aid packages, we are talking kind of three different categories that make up those financial aid packages. We have our free money. Those are grants and scholarships that come from the federal government, state government, and the colleges themselves in most cases. We're looking at borrowed money. The federal government has an excellent loan program. And then work study, which would be on-campus jobs that you're doing. And those usually all make up your financial aid package. So Tim will be talking about it in a little bit more detail, but just so that you know to expect that, loans are part of the deal. And it's not bad. It's a great investment that you're putting into your future. Okay, now that I've plugged Tim a bunch of times, March 17th is that Value Price Colleges is the name of his session, and it should be pretty interesting. I think in the link I sent you guys, I had his flyer. We have a couple of other upcoming events. As I mentioned, we have our UC PIQ workshop on March 30th. The other events, I'm excited because our different regional out-of-state admissions officers will be presenting these different topics. So I definitely have Drexel University's rep coming in, and I can't remember the other ones, but they're going to be talking about the college admissions process, essay writing, searching, and then if you are interested in transferring from our California community colleges or any community colleges to a 4-year, we also will be having an event about that. And then other dates to keep in mind, particularly as we start to go into the fall. So August 1st, the UC application, Many Common App and Coalition apps will become available to you. So you can start creating a username and password within those different portals. You can start entering in that information that you know. In most cases, you're not submitting until later. October 1st is when the FAFSA and DREAM Act application opens. The FAFSA and DREAM Act application are required if you are looking for any sort of financial aid from the federal government, state government, or the colleges themselves. I highly encourage you to complete the FAFSA or DREAM Act as it applies to you, particularly if you have another student in college right now, and maybe your rising senior will be your second student. Your estimated family contribution will stay the same, but it will basically be split between 2 students. So you might qualify for aid if you hadn't been done before outside of loans. So please submit that FAFSA as it becomes available. We'll talk a little bit more about it in the fall. The CSU application opens for submission October 1st. November 1st is an early action, early decision deadline for most universities. So that would be where you're applying early so that you can find out early whether you've been accepted, denied, or deferred for any particular university. In the fall, I'll go into a little bit more detail, or I can always answer those questions at the end here about the difference between early action and early decision and regular decision deadlines. And then the UC application will open for submission starting on November 1st, with the deadline for submissions for both our UCs and our CSUs, November 30th, and January 1st through February 15th, then beyond is deadlines for other colleges. stay up to date with me, please consider following me on Twitter or Instagram. This year, I have found posting on Instagram to be a little bit easier. It's kind of my virtual bulletin board. Also, the College and Career Center webpage, there's a link from the Northgate main page under resources to that, has a lot of other information, including a calendar of upcoming events. And if you need to schedule an appointment with me on my main page, there's a link to my Calendly, or you can find that here. So that is my overview of everything. I'm going to stop recording now, and I can go ahead and take questions that you guys might have.